Hello. It's a happy Sunday. We haven't been here. I was here last week with a group of friends, but it's the return of Mars.
It is. I'm finally here, and everything looks different now because we are officially moved into the new apartment. Okay, maybe not officially because there's still boxes and things everywhere, but we are home. And last night we spent a ridiculous amount of time putting together all new bookshelves. And then it was me furiously crying because I couldn't figure out how I wanted to arrange my things. So this is it for now. It's definitely going to change and it's definitely going to evolve, but I think it looks pretty neat. I feel so professional.
You know, I've always opted for like black bookshelves, which you can like see behind me. But every time I see yours, I'm just like, do I need to get white bookshelves? Because those look so good.
It pops. Listen, it pops. And it was like 3 years ago before we even started doing the show that I was like, you know what? I need to upgrade to all white bookshelves for Instagram aesthetics. So I'm never going back. And it's just funny because I do the show, I do YouTube. My partner does Twitch streaming. So on one half of the room of our studio, it's all white furniture. And then the other half of the studio, it's all black furniture. So it's definitely an eclectic taste we have going on here.
I love that. It reminds me of the meme of like the two houses that are dating. Like it's the goth one and then like the pastel pink and purple.
Definitely.
Like,
but to be fair, that's both sides of my personality. So it honestly all works out. But yeah, we are officially moved in. I have to give a big, huge shout out to my partner because I know he's listening. I'm also going to give a huge shout out to my brother who probably isn't listening because those two boys carried 24 boxes of comics up to the 3rd floor last weekend. And I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And I am forever thankful because scary stuff.
I think that's one of the reasons why I've put off moving. I'm like, should we get it? Should we look for a new apartment? Should we look for a new place? And I'm like, nah, I cannot do it. Like I could probably find one that's like cheaper rent or something like that. But I'm like, the moving.
I never, ever want to move again. And the worst part is the filing cabinet, the infamous filing cabinet, isn't even here yet. The boys begged and pleaded with me, please don't make us carry the giant filing cabinet on top of all these books. So the comics are here, but no filing cabinet yet. So John, if you're listening, it's going to be a little while before we can do comic worries again, buddy, because I ain't digging through 24 boxes of comics.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone who's here and the chat.
There's so many people here. There's 22 people here. We've only been live for 4 minutes. Y'all are insane.
Well, I'm going to start saying hello to a couple people. First person in the chat is our friend Brandon. What's up? Happy Sunday. Jen and Mars, who is one villain you could see yourself getting along with and being friends. All of them.
Have you met me? It's called the Scumbag Boyfriend Army for a reason, my dude. But if I'm being honest, like, I feel like me and Jason Todd would vibe. I just feel like we're both messy disaster bisexuals who would go out for drinks and possibly do karaoke. And it would just be crazy.
I agree. Alrighty. And Sheena, hello. So Sheena and I, we got to do a show together last night over on
so amazing
News. We talked about Beta Ray Bill, which was amazing. And Sheena is just one of the loveliest, most amazing, beautiful,
most amazing human beings on the planet.
And then speaking of beautiful, amazing people on the planet, it's her girl Mars. James, thank you for being here. Hello. And then shout out to Niall for being the duo, half the duo that moved those books. I know
24 comics, 24 boxes.
And Joram, hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. Let us enjoy some good reads. We got 3 weeks of books to talk about. And hello to our friend Scott. Hello, hi friends. Creating Comics While Black. Welcome back, Casually Duo. And then hello to our friend, Officially Unofficial Geek. Hi everyone. Let's see here. Maz Electra. Sup, freaks.
That's a compliment.
Yeah.
I love that.
1,000%. Shane Lorison. Hello, good morning. I'm so curious where everyone is. If it really is morning, if it's morning here, so I'm just gonna say good morning.
It's like afternoon here.
Yeah. Hello to Kaiser, Jose. Thank you for being here. Paul, hello everyone. Let's see here. Eddie Runner, station chat. And then hello to Manic23. Hi, comic folk. And Bobby De La Ghetto. Morning, happy Sunday. It is a happy Sunday.
It is a happy Sunday.
And then hello to our friend Stapled Spine, Horror Zine. Good morning and welcome back, ladies. We're back. And I think we've got some news to talk about.
We've got lots of news to talk about. Listen, I was out for 3 weeks and a lot of shit happened, okay?
Yeah, like we may not talk about all 3 weeks of comic book. Like, that's just a lot. We may not talk about all 3 weeks of comic books, but we're definitely going to talk about all 3 weeks of news.
We are.
News. What's some news that landed?
So the first thing we have, this is pretty old and it feels like it's gotten really silent, which makes me feel a little bit uneasy, but Gumroad, which is known for hosting a lot of like web comics. It's a very great area for comic creators and small press comic creators to basically house and publish their work.
Yeah, I feel like it was like a digital platform. It's not like Patreon or anything like that, but it's basically like, I felt it was like an Etsy shop where you go and you buy digital goods. So like, I know during the pandemic, when the pandemic first hit, a lot of artists, especially like smaller ones that aren't like published by the big two or even like Image, were like, hey, I've got this like comic, I've got digital artwork, maybe like wallpapers and stuff like that. You can buy off Gumroad. So it's like primarily digital artwork.
It's a lot of digital goods and services. So digital comics, like you said, digital wallpapers and things like that. However, Gumroad announced that, they were getting into NFTs, which, at this point in this stage of 2022 and in this stage of millennial panic, if we can call it that, it's nothing new. It feels like every company is jumping left and right onto the NFT game and it's going to implode in on itself. But it's the way that Gumroad handled itself post its announcement, because obviously it was taken very similar to the way the Kickstarter was, in terms of a lot of the creators deciding that they didn't want to be a part of the platform anymore because of this decision that Gumroad had made. And rather than Gumroad either, I don't want to say apologizing, because I don't feel like you should ever apologize to a consumer. Maybe that's just my retail experience.
Unless you've done like something.
Unless you've done something shitty.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
But then they chose the shitty road. They were like
the shitty road. Rather than being silent, rather than taking the high road, Gumroad started outing people, like legitimately outing people who claimed that they never used the platform. Gumroad would instead publicly post people's emails for everybody to see and be like, our database says otherwise, that you do actually have an account with us.
Yeah, so there were people on Twitter who were like, I'm never going to use Gumroad, and then the CEO of Twitter literally like would retweet or like reply and be like, well, actually, I just searched your email in our database and I see that you do have a Gumroad. So, and they, even after that, they were like doubling down on the shittiness and kept posting, like the CEO of Gumroad kept posting people's personal information that they obviously, like, I don't know what to tell you, Gumroad, but like, don't do that. Maybe
just don't be a shitty asshole. Not only that, but Gumroad started to, and I don't know if this was always their policies and procedures, or if this is something that they had changed, knowing that a lot of people were jumping ship. But Gumroad was not allowing people to cancel their accounts, and that was mostly due, in fact, to the part that, if you had if you had any sort of account balance, you could not close your account out. However, you could not cash out your balance, and we think of things like, T Republic, Patreon, even Kickstarter, I guess, where you can cash out your funds. Gumroad won't let you cash out unless you have $10 or more in credit. So if you have only $2 in sales, you can't cancel your account. And Gumroad's response to this and how to fix this issue was purchase your own work, and then the money will go back to you. But then there lies in the fact of Gumroad is still taking a cut of whatever you've purchased. And the entire idea of it is just creepy. It's very like scummy, makes me feel dirty and makes me feel like I need a shower. And it's too much. It's not Gumroad. dumbing down to like 6th grade behavior is not what I had on my 2022 bingo card.
Yeah. And it sucks because I think that digital platforms for artists to sell their work and to make money have like, even though like we have this big beautiful internet that could honestly do so many things and could be the great equalizer and how we make money. And I don't necessarily, you know, if someone enjoys doing art, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to monetize what they do, because sometimes you should just be able to enjoy things for what they are. And side hustle culture can be a death cult. But anyways, saying that, I do want to say that it's hard for creators to make money with Kickstarter also going to NFTs, Gumroad going to NFTs, and all of how do artists choose, you know, where they go? It's increasingly fewer and fewer trusted platforms for them to go to be able to monetize their work and to make a living doing what they love to do. And it just sucks. And I wish that I had, like, you know, a way to be like, make your money this way. And but increasingly capitalism, it just feels like fucks everything up. That's
it's rough. It's definitely rough. It's definitely messy. And John, absolutely not. You missed the beginning of the show. All of my comics are still in boxes, and there is no filing cabinet here yet, so I need to postpone as long as possible, pal. Thanks. But yeah, Gumroad is just, I mean, I think I've only ever used Gumroad like once or twice. But won't be touching the platform now, that's for sure.
And it stinks because, once again, I know that Etsy has become there's a little bit of controversy with even using things like Etsy, because if you agree to use Etsy, of course they have a whole bunch of fees, but then they can basically use your work to promote ads. And even if you don't agree with your work being in ads, even if they basically take more and more money. So once again, it's shitting on creators who are, for the most part, like struggling or maybe not necessarily making the most amount of money. So let's all band together, make a non-NFT platform for people to sell their artwork. Let's do it, guys.
We can do it. I believe in us.
End of the day, let's come up with a solution.
I believe in us.
In other news,
I know you kind of talked about this last week, but I missed, out on it, and I kind of want to be able to add my 2 cents. Comixology.
Speaking of shitty digital platforms,
Comixology shutting down because Amazon is just kind of grasping it and grabbing it by the bullhorns. It's just, I don't understand. Like, it felt like, I don't understand. I'm trying to put it into words because it's just stupidity, and I can't help but feel like this is what happens when you put all of your eggs in a basket. Because I feel like more people are moving towards digital. It's easy, it's convenient. You have things like Marvel Unlimited, you have the DC Universe app, you have Comixology Unlimited. And the fact that you can't do desktop reading, which a lot of people still do to this very day.
Especially for people, like, when I think about making comics more accessible, this is making comics more accessible for people maybe with vision impairment who can't, like, I like to read, but sometimes it's hard for me to read on my phone, even though I have like the biggest like screen I can possibly get sometimes. And Swamp Thing is my background, y'all.
Of course.
So even though like I like to read on my phone, it's still hard for me to do that. And like taking a desktop view away from someone just means fewer people are going to enjoy comics.
It's not even that. So I started looking at it from a more journalistic standpoint, because when we think about it, Comixology really is the place where you could grab high quality screen grabs for a lot of comic news sources. It's where I use it for a lot of like my videos, as I grab high quality stuff from my computer. I also think that it's going to be a lot harder for people to report on creative teams, because when you go to Amazon right now and you look up something, it literally just tells you the writer. Sometimes it will tell you the illustrator, but it usually is just author. It doesn't break down. So at that point in time, you're missing out on editors. You're missing out on inkers, on colorists, on anybody else who worked on the title, where, as a comic journalist, and, I've kind of strayed away from more written platforms to more digital, YouTube and streaming platforms. But Comixology was honestly where I would go in order to get proper accreditation for a lot of my news sites. So I feel like that it's going 10 steps backwards in multiple directions, because we're losing it. We're losing a digital platform, but we're losing it more than just, I can read it on the go.
Yep. And just to kind of like explain like a little bit about what's going, so Comixology like did a huge overhaul of their app, and it affects like what you just said, but then it affects the way that people read. It also affects like the library and organizing like how the library is set up. And even like, for instance, instead of being able to like click on something as a series, it's like if you've purchased a single issue, like say an issue like 12 or something like that, it doesn't lump it in with series. It'll just have like issue 13 somewhere else. So like it's even unorganized to the point where it's hard to like go back and take a look at your
not only that, but I thought I heard something where, and this is more so for international users, but basically all the books that you've published will not carry over, so you're losing out on all the money that you've spent.
Yep. Exactly. So I really hope that Jeff Bezos, I know you're watching, because you kick me off my internet when I start talking trash about you. So I know that you're watching. But what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to make Comixology like better. Like, I know this probably isn't like the end all be all of like what the Comixology app is going to look like forever. So I really hope they take this criticism, feedback, whatever. Jeff Bezos,
Elon Musk, fix
Elon
it all.
Musk, just Bill Gates, all y'all do better. Yeah, just go ahead and do better. Also pay your workers more.
Pay your workers more. Yeah. That's the most important thing. Pay your workers more.
Pay your workers more.
And pay your taxes.
And pay your taxes.
Pay your taxes. Simple as that. So yeah, that was the whole Comixology thing. I know you guys touched on it last week. I know I sent you a really interesting tweet from Patton Oswalt. You've been standing Patton Oswalt since the beginning. I am now jumping onto the Patton Oswalt.
I would love to jump onto the Patton Oswalt.
I would like to have Patton Oswalt on the show. So Patton Oswalt, I know you're listening. We need to get you on the show. We just need to talk, hang out, and have fun. But Patton Oswalt made a really interesting tweet, and I wish I had saved it. I might have it somewhere in. Let me see here. Hold on. I know how I can get this.
So, really quick, if you all have watched the show, you know that Patton Oswalt, he's a really big nerd. Not just huge nerd. Like, he's written several comic books. He's had a big deal to do with the I've got the tweet right here. But he's also like recently done MODOK, which I really appreciate, in Marvel as well. So basically what Patton said is, hey, I received some very kind outreach from Marvel and DC about this whole Comixology mess. They both have wonderful digital platforms, and if you like their comics, you should definitely use them. But as much as I enjoy them, there are dozens of other smaller companies, Aftershock, Oni, Vault, Ahoy, putting out some comics, and basically not only is like championing these smaller ones, but also saying, hey, go to your local comic book store.
And that's another interesting conversation to have, because you know, a lot of people have been posting, especially creators. I've noticed a lot of it's coming from comic book creators, where they're saying, you know, this is why you shouldn't read digital. This is why you should read, you know, go to your actual local comic book store and support. And listen, I will always 100%, as somebody who's worked in a comic book shop, as somebody who has lived, breathed, bred, will probably get married at some point, whatever, in a comic book shop. Absolutely support your local comic book stores, because they're the forefront of the industry. However, there are people that physically don't have access. You know, you go to some of these places in the middle of the country, you know, little bumpkin towns where you might have to drive 2 hours one way to go to a comic book shop. So sometimes digital is the only way you can read.
That was me when I lived in Florida. There was a comic shop there was 2 comic shops that were about and within an hour, but I had to drive, like, it was like literally 45 minutes and then maybe like another half an hour from there. And those were the only 2. And there probably wasn't another one for like another hour north north of there. So
unlike Portland, where you now have one on every corner.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've said it before, but it's Scott was on our Friday show, and we were talking about how within an hour walk, I can probably walk to 4 or 5 walk to comic shops within like 4 or 5 within an hour walk. And
listen, I know I said I never want to move again, but it might be time to move already.
Move to Portland.
Move to Portland. So yeah, that's our little comicsology talk. But the news only gets better and or worse from here. I don't know. So let's talk about DC and Marvel. Let's talk about George Perez. So we covered here a couple weeks ago, that there was an announcement with George Perez, and that, he is going through some things and is it stage?
I believe it's stage 3 or 4 pancreatic cancer.
Pancreatic cancer. Yeah.
Or stomach cancer.
That sounds right. He has cancer, and as we all know, George Perez is a forefront of this industry. A lot of things that we love and know would not exist without him. And a lot of people were championing for his DC Comics, Marvel Comics crossover to be reprinted, and it is, it's fantastic. These two big publishers who want nothing to do with each other decided to come together for a good cause in reprinting the famous JLA Avengers crossover, which is like a 4 or 5 issue miniseries that came out in the 90s. And a lot of the proceeds are going to George Perez, which I just got to make a little comment here that maybe if you actually paid your creators more and offered them benefits, we wouldn't have to be doing fundraiser printings of books for said creators. But the other thing about this reprint, because I think this reprint is brilliant, it's never been reprinted since it officially came out back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The downside to this reprinting is it is a limited print run of like
7,000
copies, which is absolutely insane to me, especially when you think about the way that the comic book market is post-COVID. A lot of people are snatching up things and marking them up to high prices. And damn well, there are going to be a lot of people out there that are scooping up these limited print books and reselling them for a higher cost.
Yep.
And here's the thing. If this is something that is... If this is something that's supposed to be for a creator and it's supposed to help them, why not do a sort of print on demand? Print so many copies, say, hey, we're printing so many copies, and then sort of go into a print on demand sort of thing, which I know logistically probably isn't the greatest in comics, but you could definitely do something like that with pre-orders. And then maybe allocate so many to stores and to bookstores and comic shops and whatever, throw so many on Amazon. Because then it's like, not only are you limiting your print run to, however many, and scalpers are going to scoop it up, that's you basically saying, okay, we're going to donate our proceeds to this very worthy creator, but we're only donating this amount of money.
We're only, so that even if it was, let's go ahead and say like $10 per book, that's still, like however much ends up going to George Perez, that's still only 70,000, like however much it ends up being. Mm-hmm. And so I understand that they may keep the print run low to make it feel more exclusive. They may be holding back copies so they can go ahead and like sell them at a much, much higher rate later on when it's even like it feels even more exclusive later. But I fear that like none of that money is really going to go to George. And once again, none of that money is going to go towards like bettering a living creator's life. Some of the money may end up going to George Perez's family after he's gone to help support them. But once again, if these companies, which are especially like when I think about Marvel making these billion-dollar movies, aren't paying creators what they're worth. And
it's pretty pathetic that we as a community, because I'm going to, chalk it up to the community, but we as a community had to create something called the Hero Initiative, where we as fans not have to, because, you know, you don't have to do anything, but, you know, if I see somebody with a bucket for the Hero Initiative at a table, of course I'm going to give that money. You know, it's this idea that because you don't pay your workers enough, because you don't give them benefits, that we now have to take care of them on top of already buying their work, which is directly going into your pocket.
Yep. Once again, and I think this applies to, I mean, maybe this is just a shitty hot take opinion of mine, but it's kind of like tipping, where it's like, if a company's only paying an employee like $3 an hour and they're like waiting for people to tip them to be able to pay their bills, to me that's a shitty business model. If you don't have enough money to pay your employees a livable wage, like, you just shouldn't be in business.
I agree.
So I really hope, I don't think that, like, out of all the outrage, I don't anticipate Marvel or DC agreeing to do a higher print run, and it could just be two divorced parents are just like, we're not going to do it.
Two divorced parents being like, I already gave you $1. Now you want $0.25? You're insane.
Exactly. So it could just be like the people who are affected are us comic book children.
Yeah.
And the creators.
Yeah. Basically. So,
well, yeah. Do we have any other, like, any good news? Any happy news?
We got the finale of Peacemaker within the last 2 weeks, which was pretty good. So Peacemaker, you know, we've talked about it here and there on the show, is a spinoff to the Suicide Squad movie that came out this past summer by James Gunn, which listen here, y'all, it is the best comic book movie ever created. Sorry. Anyway, I wasn't a fan of Peacemaker, the show, at least. I mean, the character too. I wasn't a fan of the Peacemaker show when it first aired. I feel like those first like 3 issues were very, very, very slow. And then once you hit episode 5 or so, that's when it feels like it ramps up into full gear. Vigilante starts to show a lot of his personality, and I absolutely love him. And I really hope that we can see more of him in comics. Like, listen, I just want a Peacemaker Vigilante comic book team up book. Like, I feel like that could be fun.
My favorite part about Peacemaker, obviously, because I'm going to go there, is the fact that Peacemaker is a bi icon.
He's a bi icon.
He's a bi-con, and so he's up there with what's the sweater dude neighborhood? Can't think.
Sweater Dude Neighborhood.
No, he did a kids show. Oh man, I'll think of his name.
You're losing me here.
PBS guy, right? Won't you be my neighbor?
Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers, yeah, Mr. Rogers was maybe bisexual.
What?
Yeah. In a book, he said that something about like gender didn't really have much about like being attracted to humans, and that like he found himself attracted to both men and women at times. Yeah. So Mr. Rogers, bisexual icon, right along there with Peacemaker. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I don't make the rules. So anyways, there's a moment in like the first or second episode where Peacemaker's talking about being in prison, and he's like, yeah, like I haven't had sex in a while. And he's like, well, I haven't had sex with women in a while. And then in like the almost not the penultimate, but then his dad says something like, you're sleeping with whores, like the whore of Babylon.
And men.
And apparently a lot of that was like, granted that was his dad saying it, but a lot of that was actually those lines were put in there by John Cena himself. So we have John Cena once again, like, not all heroes wear capes. Peacemaker doesn't. John Cena doesn't wear capes, apparently. But he's a hero.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love John Cena's enthusiasm for the Peacemaker character. Like, I just remember when the Suicide Squad movie was coming out, and every interview he did, he was wearing his stupid fucking costume because he refused to take it off.
It doesn't sound.
It just fascinates me, you know, and you got to give credit to, you know, John Cena, of course, because he really did bring life to the character. But the fact that James Gunn, once again, takes a F-list character that nobody knew, cared about, didn't want to know, and made him cool and fun. And I'm even talking so far as just going from the Suicide Squad movie where I wanted to hate him and he was a bastard and I couldn't stand him. And then by the end of his own show, I'm like, he's a precious little baby, and I'm going to protect him.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to season 2 and how much more that they can do. I'm looking forward to the eventual, there's like another Suicide Squad spinoff or something like that we're supposedly getting, but they haven't announced it yet. But I'm all for it. And that was the last bit of news I had. But then officially Unofficial Geek came through
and said,
I completely forgot this happened this week because it has been busy. So yes, it was announced like Thursday that Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez? George Jimenez?
Mm-hmm.
Jimenez is taking over Batman, and I don't know how I feel about this. I
personally I don't like Chip Zdarsky. I hated Stillwater that came out like this last year or the year before. Hated Stillwater. Did not particularly like Chip Zdarsky on Batman the Knight. And
hated that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how I feel.
Here's how I feel. So Chip Zdarsky over at Marvel basically, I don't want to say revolutionized Daredevil, but people are blowing up this Daredevil run. I personally haven't read it yet, but
I like it.
Everyone and their mother really likes it. You like it. So it feels like jumping over to Batman, you're kind of doing the same thing again because Daredevil / Moon Knight is essentially Marvel's equivalency of Batman. And I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad about that, but y'all, it's the truth. I don't know what to tell you. So it feels like you're basically doing something you've already done on top of doing a Batman miniseries or a limited series that isn't very good to begin with. But listen, y'all, I miss Chip Zdarsky when he was fucking funny. All right. I miss him on books like Howard the Duck and books like Sex Criminals, where I know Matt Fraction, was coined as the writer, but when you look into it, it was a combination of Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky doing a lot of that. And I just, listen, Chip, if you're listening, I need some grade A comedy back in my life because there's not a ton of like funny laugh out loud books anymore, it feels like. And I just, I like books that make me laugh.
I don't necessarily think that Chip Zdarsky will bring that to Batman, but maybe that's the Batman that we need, is maybe we need a refreshing, funny Batman where it's not, because, at the end of the day, the Batman, like maybe just like the zaniness, the campiness of the original Batman, like maybe, I don't think so because I don't think that would necessarily vibe with Jimenez's artwork. But I hope that I do enjoy Chip Zdarsky when he's not like being an edgelord.
Yeah. And I feel like when he's this edgelord, because we see it in Stillwater, we saw it in that Batman, thing. Kind of, I guess, maybe in a way saw it with Daredevil. Again, can't really speak on behalf of that because I haven't read it yet. But I just like, I don't know. Here's an idea. Here's a thought. What if we just canceled Batman and went a whole year? What if we just went a whole year without Batman? Wouldn't that be fucking insane?
Yeah.
It'll never happen. Yeah. But I think it would be interesting.
I think so too. I think, and I mean, once again, DC, I know you're listening. I'm here to write for you Batman Year 18, Barely Legal, and its sequel, Batman Year 69.
Listen, I'm not throwing shade at Moon Knight. Y'all know I'm a Moon Knight hoe till the day I die. But I know a sheep when I see, or no, I know a duck when I see one. If it walks like a duck, if it quacks a duck, it's Batman.
Yeah.
So
especially with Moon Knight, because he's like rich guy with all the like technology.
The only difference is one acknowledges that he has a mental illness and the other one hides it.
Yeah. Yep. And doesn't go to therapy. Batman doesn't go to therapy, but
Batman doesn't go to therapy. So that's like all my news. There is one other thing we're going to talk about, but I think we're going to save that in with one of the books we're talking about because it kind of overlaps. So I guess it's the part that everybody's been waiting for, and that's, I guess, for us to talk about comics.
Yeah. So we're going to let the chat decide again, as we typically do. Do we want to go with Marvel or DC? Do we want to start with Image? We've got I've got a lot of books to talk about this week. So maybe we can talk a little bit about the last couple of weeks since we've been away.
I have so many books to talk about. There is one book that I did not read this week or last week, or let's just say there's a book I didn't read that's in my pile, and I'm actually surprised I didn't. And that's What's the Furthest Place from Here, number 4. But I'm still going to talk about it, even though I didn't read it. I'm so not excited for the series as I was when it first debuted, and it makes me sad because I fucking love Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss. To put it fucking bluntly, because look, I can now do shit like this. Ain't this fun? Look how cool this is.
Oh my God.
To put it bluntly, this is how much I love Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss. I own not one, but 2 fucking versions of 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank, which is probably one of my top 5 favorite comic books of all time.
It is.
So the fact that What's the Furthest Place from Here has, I don't want to say dropped the ball, but it has completely dropped the ball, makes me really, really depressed because I waited multiple years for this book to come out.
I think what it is for me is because in all of Matthew Rosenberg's books, the characters, the way they talk to one another, like you hear the character, I can't hear that in What's the Furthest Place from Here. Like I don't hear.
Everybody feels the same.
Everybody feels the same. Like no one has a distinct voice. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And the humor's just not there. I feel like, especially, I mean, Matt alone does a lot of really good humor, but I feel like Matt and Tyler together in particular, they have a very unique style where it is very humor forward, but it's a very like dry humor.
Yeah.
Which I love. And we're not getting that with this.
Yep. Agreed.
Also, Kaiser Jose came in and said indies. So that's good because I have a lot of indies to talk about.
Yeah, same. I've got a lot. These are my this week's indies.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. What indies did you read that I didn't? Because apparently I did not read nearly as many as you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and just kind of go through these quickly because these are the ones that I read that you didn't. I got a one shot by IDW. It's Star Trek Klingons. Normally, I don't actually really like Star Trek comic books, even though I love Star Trek. The comic books have never just been there for me. Klingons was exceptional. It goes over the history of how Kal-Es, like the Klingon who united the Klingon tribes, basically did it. So anyways, I really liked it. It was pretty gosh darn good. Let's see here. Did you read this week Step by Bloody Step?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'll save that one for a little bit. Because I've got thoughts. I know you read that one too.
I have lots of thoughts, and I think that we have very, very opposing thoughts. So maybe we should just talk about it.
Okay, so Step by Bloody Step.
Step by Bloody Step is a Simon Spurrier or Cy Spurrier book. What did you think about it? Because I'm curious.
I really liked it. For those of you who don't know, it's a kind of a silent book, so there's not actually any dialogue with the exception of like a fake language.
I'm shocked. I thought you were going to hate it.
No, I loved it. I thought that it I really like what's his name? Cy Spurrier. I really like their writing style, and this reminded me a lot of Descender in some ways. And I also got the Ian Bertram cover as well. And if you liked Little Bird, I would also highly recommend it. So it's basically a like young person ends up getting.
I think they said a young girl. I think on the back it does say a girl.
It does. Basically, they're traveling to like a new land, but they're like, I don't know. I really liked it.
She has this giant robot protector, essentially, that is kind of like sheltering her away from the world. So I did absolutely love this book. I thought this book was amazing, and I thought you were going to absolutely hate it because I know it feels like the past like 3 silent issues we've talked about. You're like, no, I don't like it.
What was another silent issue I didn't like?
Haha. My favorite issue of Haha.
That one was my least favorite issue of Haha.
Number 3.
But I still really liked it.
There was Haha number 3, and then there was the giant size X-Men Emma Frost Jean Grey. I feel like you were kind of iffy on. Maybe it was somebody else.
Maybe that was someone else.
I am a hoe for silent issues. I really, really am realizing it as I read more and more that I really love silent issues because we've talked about it before. I hate really wordy stuff. And usually I don't like Cy Spurrier because they get very, very wordy. I don't know if you've ever read his book, The Spire.
Spire, yeah.
I wanted to love that book. Could barely get through it because it was just words constantly and it was overwhelming and overstimulating and I couldn't do it. So I was worried that this was going to be the same for Step by Bloody Step, and was honestly surprised when it wasn't. And listen, this book is my jam. It is my trope of the big hulking guardian and their small younger companion. And it's just got this like Miyazaki vibe to it, but also reminds me of Morbius in a way, or Mobius in a way. And it's really, really great. I think the one thing about this book that I did not like, I don't like that it's going to be a issue by issue. I think something like this needed to benefit from either an oversized one-shot, kind of like the Aftershock magazine styles, or it just needed to be an OGN.
I do kind of agree with that because this story goes by really fast, and there are a lot of pages that just have an overwhelming amount of panels. So like this page right here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's just like a lot of little panels. I love the artwork. I want to say I really love the artwork.
It's very detailed, very, very gorgeous. There's a lot of little things that you might miss the first time you read it.
Yeah, but then it ends up almost looking really busy. So I really hope I'm excited for the next couple issues, but I have a feeling that when I pick up issue 2, I'm going to need to go back and read issue 1. Because it's busy, but it's beautiful. I really, really liked this book.
That's my biggest fear. So I probably am going to read issue 2 because it is part of our Image press kit. If I was buying it, I'd probably hold off by trade.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did like it. It was one of those books I was very surprised about. I was reading it this weekend, and it was the book that I came upon, and I'm like, shit, I have to read this, and I'm going to get really bogged down and really annoyed. And I very much enjoyed it.
Excellent. I'm glad we agree, because when you were like, we're going to have differing opinions.
I thought you were going to hate it. I was for sure you were going to hate it.
No, I really liked it. One of the other books that I got that I know that you're not on, Department of Truth, issue number 16. Yeah. So this Department of Truth, from the beginning, has been a book about conspiracy theories, and it's a book about how there is a clandestine like government organization that when people start believing in conspiracy theories so much, they end up becoming true. So the first issue, spoiler alert, talks about the flat earth conspiracy theory, and so many people start believing in it, for an instant it becomes true. So anyways, each issue has gone through quite a few, like aliens, Bigfoot, like those types of conspiracy theories. This one goes into MK Ultra, and
what is MK Ultra?
MK Ultra is this government experiment where they basically brainwashed people from using while using drugs. A lot of people supposedly who had gone through MK Ultra experiences ended up with like kind of going crazy, or ended up just with a lot of mental health issues because of like the experiments that were done. So this one is basically 2 people who are doing drugs and go on like a binge, but they're having the craziest conversations, and this one's really hard to follow. So especially for you, Mars, like I know that you don't like Department of Truth, but I could see you hating this one, but I really liked it.
Department of Truth, at least for me, is so disappointing because I was so into the idea of it. And I read that first trade, and I did not enjoy it at all. Part of me is hoping we get to see like a Netflix adaptation or some type of show.
I think we are getting a show.
I feel like if we get something adapted, I feel like I could really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. I really enjoy the comic book. But the one thing that it's gotten a little bit, like, I don't want to say off the rails, because what I just described is kind of off the rails anyways. But with this book, it's definitely like episodical. So I could see And it hasn't gotten back to like the main storyline, it feels like, and I think we need to go back to some of the main characters where it's gotten away from that.
Yeah.
But there is something at the end where it's like, okay, we'll be getting back to that soon. So I really like Department of Truth, but I really love like conspiracy theories and weird shit,
Mm-hmm.
and like the X-Files vibe of it. So
Yeah.
one of the other books that I read, I don't think that you've read, House of Slaughter #5.
No, I did finally catch up with Something is Killing Children, but I have not caught up with House of Slaughter.
I feel like I wanted more out of this, and then this one, I'm like 99% sure that this one was the last one of this series before it goes back to the regular Something is Killing the Children books. I didn't feel like it was a great ending, to be very honest, at least to justify having its own story. I wish that either this was in Something is Killing the Children,
because doesn't that character die in Something is Killing the Children? Spoiler alert. Sorry, I probably should have premised that, but that book's been out forever now. So it's not necessarily a prequel to Something is Killing the Children, but it runs earlier to the events of it.
Yeah, it felt like an afterthought to me, because I think Something is Killing the Children like absolutely blew up. It's probably one of the most.
They were probably trying to capitalize on the success of Something is Killing the Children with a spin-off title. And as we saw, Something is Killing the Children #1 went to, I think it was like 12 printings or something along those lines. House of Slaughter, I think, went to 2, not even.
I think that people, like, as much as they love Something is Killing the Children, like, people didn't necessarily want to read the story. They just wanted to jump on it because of the hype around it. Because I think a lot of people who speculate about comics don't actually read them. They just buy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, hot take there. But this series itself, it's obviously just a companion piece, but you don't have to read this. I enjoyed it, but it could have been better. That's all I got to say.
That's the vibe I got from the whole series, honestly. That's why I haven't been in a complete rush to pick it up.
Mm-hmm. One of the other books that I got, this one is done by Vault Comics, Mad Cave, is The Last Session. I really love it. It's really, it's basically a group of people playing D&D, and it's going to be their last session before they're all kind of like moving on with their life. This one is issue 3.
I love. I know I talk about it every time you talk about the series, but I absolutely love those character sheet variants that they do. They're so cool.
They are.
And honestly, Die missed out on not doing that.
Agreed. This is kind of what I wanted Die to be. Like, this is obviously a funner story than Die was. Like, Die got really depressing. But The Last Session, like, if you read Die and you're like, people should actually have fun while playing D&D, I would highly recommend The Last Session. It's only on issue 3, so it should relatively be easy to find. But then it's also at this point where there's probably going to be a trade coming out soon. So if you like D&D and maybe you are
inclusivity.
Yeah, it's diverse. Like, I mean, it's not just like diverse where it's like you've got a cleric and a barbarian and like all of those. It's a really diverse book, and there's lots of different viewpoints. Would highly recommend it. Give this to if you have maybe like a Gen Z who thinks they want to get into D&D and like want to give them a comic. I would give them this trade in a heartbeat.
Oh no, 100%. I love Last Session. I've fallen a bit behind on it, but Last Session has been just absolutely delightful. To answer Maz Electra's question, with is Volt having distribution issues lately? I heard things about having distribution issues with their trades. I don't believe I've been hearing anything with their issues. I know that they have gone to a very weird, where they're only releasing one new series a month, which is smart, but then it feels like with books like Radioapocalypse, which we'll talk about, it felt like there was 2 months in between issue 1 and 2.
Yeah. There was a really long wait with Radioapocalypse.
Very long wait.
Let's talk about that one.
Radioapocalypse. Okay. So I actually physically have that one. So Radioapocalypse #1. It's very funny because we were just talking about what's the furthest place from here. Both of these books are extremely, extremely similar. They both came out in the same month. The only difference is we're on issue 4 of What's the Furthest Place from Here, and only on issue 2 of Radioapocalypse. So,
and they both, and really quick, they're both set in like this weird post-apocalyptic time frame, and they're also featuring like where there's like groups of settlements of people who are currently living in the apocalypse. Granted, the What's the Furthest Place from Here deals mostly with like kids, and then this Radioapocalypse has a varied age group. I did not really love issue 1 of this. Maybe that's my expectations were really high.
Did.
And then Mars and I switched because I loved issue 2, and Mars.
Issue 2 was awful for me. Like issue 1, because issue 1 came out before the end of 2022. I felt like issue 1, I was like so on board with it. I was like, this is gonna be book of the year for 2022. Mm-hmm. I love this so much. Maybe it was because my expectations for this was so high that I was just really, really disappointed. But this was the first comic that I had read. Okay, that's a lie. Saga was, but this was like the first comic I had read in the span of 2 weeks, and I was so disappointed by it. First of all, the artwork, I feel like in this book trailed off completely to what it was in the first.
I feel like it was better than the first. Did we read the same book? Did we get different books?
I have no idea, because there are panels in this book where people just straight up don't fucking have faces. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are these people faceless? I hate what is going on here. So the one thing I really like about Radioapocalypse, and the one thing, because I feel like I'm trashing a book, and I feel like I gotta give it some positives. We gotta talk about the good before we talk about the bad. Radioapocalypse, Ram V states, I don't believe it's in this issue. Okay, it is in this issue. Where he tells you at the beginning of every issue that at some point he's going to reference a song or character playing music or whatever. And this happens twice actually in this book, whereas the last one, it was a Bruce Springsteen song that I didn't realize I liked and didn't realize it was Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
This one is Day Tripper by the Beatles.
Yep.
And a Neil Young song, which I find really fucking ironic because I went to Spotify to play it and was like, oh, Neil Young's gone. Gotta go to YouTube.
The whole Joe Rogan thing.
Which is just
for those of you who don't know, Joe Rogan is a
slimy piece of shit.
Slimy, I wasn't going to say that, but I was going to say, has been peddling false information about COVID, has had voices on his show to be like people who are like anti-trans,
it's bad.
Anyways, so
fun fact about Joe Rogan, it was a good solid 3 years before I realized he was the same fucko from Fear Factor. And to this day, I still can't believe that they're the same person. I think he ate the real Joe Rogan. I really do.
Okay,
and
so that is now
his skin.
My new conspiracy theory. I'm going to start peddling conspiracy theories just like him. Did Joe Rogan eat Joe Rogan?
Did Joe Rogan eat Joe Rogan?
I'm just asking the questions.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about, we always talk about politics on the show. We're not here to talk about really big political issues. That can be found on our podcast After Dark. Anyway, so Radioapocalypse, I wanted to enjoy this issue. I really did. I felt like some of the character moments were lost. I feel like this, maybe it's because there was such a long break between issue 1 and issue 2, but this book feels like it should be an anthology where every single issue should have a song. You get one song that's the theme of your book, and it follows different characters as they're adjusting to this apocalypse. But then I feel like that's ruined because, and this happened at the end of issue 1 as well, but it's more prominent in this one. They're trying to tie together this larger story.
Yeah.
And for me, it just doesn't work. It feels very messy, very convoluted. And I'm trying to chalk it up to the fact that it's because it's been how many months since issue 1? Yeah. It's been 3 months since issue 1. But I don't know. I want it more from this book.
When issue 1 first came out, I'm complete opposite. When issue 1 first came out, I was like, I expected more. The story didn't do it for me. I think it also came out at the same time, the same week as What's the Furthest Place from Here. Both stories set in the apocalypse. Both stories about like people trying to survive the apocalypse.
With
both
music.
have music. And so, but What's the Furthest Place from Here has gotten away from me. quite literally. But Radioapocalypse with this second issue, I think really did it for me, really solidified how much I love Ram V's writing, and I really trust it. And I think this issue like really made me feel stuff, kind of weird. Don't know if I
See,
like
and
feel.
that's how I felt about issue 1.
I'm still going to be picking this up issue by issue. Hopefully it gets a little bit more consistent and I don't have to wait another 3-4 months for the next issue, but I love it.
I'm going to give it, I think I'm going to give it one more issue.
Okay.
I'm going to give it one more issue and see where it goes from there. Hopefully, as you stated, we have consistency and we don't have to wait 2 more months. Like, let me wait a month and we'll go from there. So, yeah, Radioapocalypse.
One of the other books that I know that you didn't read this week, but it was quite possibly one of my favorite books this week, and that was King Ghidorah from Scout. It's a book that's got our buddy Godzilla on it, and basically Godzilla smells some pizza and needs to get after it. Like, I 100% I identify as a pizza hunting monster that will destroy cities in order to get some good pizza. And the artwork in here is just, I love the use of the like on down here you can see it's boom, and it does a lot of those. There's even one that said, oh man, where is it? Anyways, this book is just like kind of bloody, kind of gross, but it's just fun. I really love our boy Pizza Godzilla. Godzilla Pizza Godzilla.
I wanna pick that up, but we were talking about a little bit backstage. I just feel so disconnected from Scout at this point in time because, you know, I'll pick up an issue and I'll really enjoy it. I'm looking at King's Vengeance. And then it will be 4 months before I get issue 2. And I have the brain of a goldfish. Okay. Yeah. I have goldfish brain. I can't remember something that happened last week, let alone 4 months ago. Yeah. And it got to the point where I really just want to like consume their content in the form of a trade. And I feel like they've been getting better with trades. Yeah. However, you stated this is a one shot.
This is indeed a one shot. I do wish that it was multiple, because I stan pizza eating king.
Do you think that this should have been more of like I'm trying to compare it to Cinnamon, where Cinnamon was like it followed a consistent tone, but it was like, okay, issue 1 is Cinnamon getting into trouble in this scenario, issue 2 is Cinnamon getting into trouble in that, and each issue was standalone.
Yeah, I do hope that would be interesting if they did something like that. And because this is a one shot, I think it's easy to pick up, maybe like you don't have to worry about waiting months. But I really hope it's Marco Fontanelli. So I really hope they end up doing more stuff.
Yeah, because even from the cover, their artwork is gorgeous.
Give me a Mothra one. Give me all the big boy monsters.
Yes, give me a King Ghidorah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nerdburger, if you're watching, I think you said that you got this one. It's really good. If you haven't read Gut Ghost as well, like Gut Ghost is another like pizza eating king that I absolutely stan, also done by Scout Comics. Would highly recommend that as well if you liked King Ghidorah.
I have a book that I read that you probably didn't read.
What's that?
We got Cloaked number 3. I believe that was last week.
I even ended up going out and getting all 3 issues, and I still haven't read it.
You're killing me.
Sorry.
So Cloaked is a 4-issue miniseries from Dark Horse Comics. I feel like it is probably one of the most underrated books right now on the market. It's one that I picked up issue 1, didn't expect to really care for, and now I'm like obsessed with it. So Cloaked basically is following the story of a detective who is trying to uncover the identity and well-beings of basically a Batman-esque character. And that's what I really like about this character is it basically has been this comic it has been a dissection into the Batman character, into Batman lore. So in the first issue, we saw our detective basically interrogating and conversing with what was essentially Robin. And we find out that Robin really didn't know this Batman that well. They were literally just picked up off the street. They were given a costume. They would be told to meet them at certain times in certain places, and that's it. Issue 2, we kind of got a Barbara Gordon, Lois Lane-esque character, which was really interesting. And then in this third issue, we basically get our Joker character. And again, everything is kind of satire to what we all know, and that is the Batman and his universe. And I won't spoil it because you said you've picked up all 3 issues, but the way issue 3 ends and the things that we learn in issue 3 makes me really curious how it's going to end. And honestly, this is going to be one of those books I recommend for people when they want superhero comics, but they're tired. Listen, I noticed that. I noticed nobody has eyeballs, and it reminds me of the really weird animated movie that came out years ago called A Scanner Darkly with Keanu Reeves and Christian Slater. Reminds me of that.
Okay.
The art style on it is just really weird. But I feel like Cloaked is going to be up there in terms of books I recommend, like Black Hammer, where maybe you want a superhero book, but not a superhero book. You just like the idea of superheroes. Yeah. It's so underrated, and I want more people to be reading this. And I did not expect Dark Horse to put out a story like this.
Yeah. I'm going through and can confirm no one has eyes.
No one has eyes.
But the artwork is still really good. Like, I don't necessarily want that to take away from the artwork. And this definitely reminds me of the, like, Batman not necessarily fighting, like, it reminds me of Long Halloween, where Batman is really going into depth on, like, the crime families. Like, that's the Batman that I love. Mm-hmm. I mean, a little bit of, like, the weird villains. And for sure, I think that I would, even though I haven't read it, every time you mention it, it reminds me of Black Hammer, where it's like, it's kind of not making fun, but it's like a satire of superheroes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I need to read that. I need
to read that
for next Sunday.
You need to read that, and then you're gonna break my heart when you tell me you don't like it.
Oh, goodness. I'll lie. Some of the other books that I got, speaking of Black Hammer, Black Hammer Reborn issue number 8. This, like, basically like a new Black Hammer, but in this issue, it's like, it's an alternate world. This series is really, really good. I love Black Hammer. This is like the 13th trade. There's a lot of Black Hammer. So
there's a lot of Black Hammer. It's really kind of gotten away from itself, but it's all still really, really good.
All still excellent. For sure. One of the other books that I got, and this one's Behemoth. It is Heavy Metal Drummer. It was okay. It wasn't like a favorite book of mine.
Was no You Promised Me Darkness.
It wasn't You Promised Me Darkness. I do like the artwork style, and I did, like, if you take a look at, I want to make sure I'm not like showing anything too, but I do like the colors in it, and I do like the artwork, but the story wasn't there. I think this is a one-shot, or maybe it's not, but I'm probably not going to buy the next issue. It's also a weird format. It does fit into like modern, but there's a little bit of a gap here, so it's kind of funky.
Weird.
Like I said, I didn't hate it, but I also just didn't love it.
I'm so disturbed by that, and I don't like it. Why is it different?
Its smug aura mocks me. A couple other books that I got. Two Moons, issue 10. I think this one is either the last one or the like penultimate issue. We're getting close there to the end. It's just a really good series, set in like Civil War, but then it gets like weird and cosmic. And then what is Second You Promised Me Dark?
Very bad.
Hated it.
And the fact that it got a sequel, hate that.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really finish this one, and I think it's because I am okay or kind of like on Radiant Black, but Supermassive is a one-shot.
So surprised. I mean, I am, but I'm not, because I feel like Radiant Black is the type of series that would get a spinoff. But
Yeah.
why?
Kyle Higgins did Power Rangers, and I feel like this is really just like what he wanted to do with Power Rangers and couldn't. So it still doesn't feel original enough for me to love it, but I do know people who absolutely love Radiant Black, and this one features Radiant Red or Super Radiant Girl, something like that. So anyways, it's this whole universe that's being created. The last book that I think that I have that you don't have is Philadelphia. Just an absolutely fantastic series written by Rodney Barnes. Please go out and read it. The third trade just finished up. This is the beginning of the fourth arc. So, just absolutely love it. The only other two books that I have are Distorted, and this is Scout. I couldn't even remember what this one was about. So,
yeah.
Love it. And then Heathens got a reprint for #1 by Vault Comics.
Oh, that's right. That did come out. Now, is it bigger? Because when in solicitations it was marked as $10. What justifies it being a $10 book?
It's $7.99.
But what justifies it being $7.99? The fact that it's just a reprint?
I think the cover is shiny.
Yeah, but Death of Layla Starr was shiny for $3.99.
I think it's really the cover here, because I notice it's a thicker cover. That's the biggest difference that I can see, is that it's just shiny.
Vote, what the hell is going on? We gotta talk.
That's why they're having production issues with the rest of their books, because they put all of their eggs on Heathen.
It makes zero sense to me, and I'm just very, 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 very confused. Why?
I've got 2 other indie books from this week.
I have at least 2 that I know you didn't read.
Okay.
I think. Maybe. So the first one is, hold on, because I have a whole list here and I'm trying to find everything. First one is Animal Castle #3. I don't know if you've been reading Animal Castle.
I read issue 1, but I haven't been keeping up with it.
Animal Castle #2 was very, very slow, and I wasn't feeling it. Animal Castle #3 was also slow, but I was kind of interested in it. So in Animal Castle #3, we kind of see the rebellion kind of start to form. I can't think of any of the characters' names, but they're now going out and painting daisies everywhere, kind of as a, not homage, but, as a sign of rebellion for the chicken or rooster that was killed in issue 1. And I kind of like seeing this like glimmer of hope, and to see people fighting back, especially with a lot of the current events that are going on right now. It kind of hit in a very close to home sort of space where it feels like I'm living in that right now, and I can kind of relate to that a lot more than I feel like I would normally if I had read it a couple of weeks ago. I personally just, I wish that Animal Castle would go darker, because that first issue was so dark and so bleak, and I feel like those first couple pages are what dragged me into it. And now it just kind of feels like your average sort of, we have to rebel and take back what belongs to us, but we're doing it in the form of animals. And it's good, but it's not nearly as good as I was hoping for.
Oh, wow. See, I, from the Friday night comic book crew, it sounds like they're really digging it. I didn't realize how dark the first issue had been compared to the other ones. It sounded to me, I thought that it was getting a little bit darker, a little bit like riskier. But
this issue was very, very safe, it feels like.
Okay. And it's published by
Ablaze.
Ablaze.
And not only is it being published by Ablaze, but it's not even an original title like we all were led to believe, because apparently it was released in French as an original graphic novel, or maybe it was single issues, but either way, it's basically just an English translation from a French publication.
Got it. Okay. What was another indie book that you had?
Another indie book that I had, I'm sure you did read this. This is from like 4 weeks ago. Seven Seekers #14.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling very upsetty with it. It's not as good as those first 2 arcs, and I'm getting very upset.
I kind of agree. Like, yeah, I love Tom Taylor. Really appreciate what he's doing. I'm glad that I picked up Seven Secrets again because of you, but I'm definitely feeling lost. And I don't know if it's just because I'm reading so many books and it feels like it's longer than a month that I'm waiting to read Seven Secrets, but I'm definitely like, I think that I'm going to drop the single issues and wait for the trade on those.
I can understand that. Part of me wants to start doing that too. Part of me also feels like this series is drawing out longer than maybe it should be. Because, you know, the second arc left us on this huge, massive cliffhanger. And I thought from here it was going to go balls to the wall insanity with what was going to happen. But it feels, again, like Animal Castle, it feels like it's been playing it very, very safe. And I'm tired of it. I need more.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that it does, but I'm like I said, I'm probably also going to drop it and wait for the trade and just read it all at once.
I need more. The only other title that I think I have that you don't is
really quick. JD Barry says Seven Secrets is over at 18, and this was issue number 16.
It's number 14, so I don't know how they're going to wrap this up in 4 issues.
Probably the last arc. I guess I'm going to have to keep reading the single issues then.
I don't know how they're going to wrap it up in 4 issues. Hopefully it won't be another die situation. That's all I can say. The only other book that I read that I believe that you didn't get to because you had mentioned that you missed it or forgot it or whatever, and that's We Ride Titans number 2 from Bolt Comics. Feels like there was a little bit of a delay on this book as well, so maybe there are shipping delays or whatever that we were discussing before. But We Ride Titans number 2, it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It was very sliding in the middle, average for me, where it was there. You know, I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I really love the premise of We Ride Titans, which is basically this Pacific Rim kaiju fight, but with lesbians and family trauma, which is my jam. Yeah. But I feel like this issue was just a lot of talking. I want to see more robots fighting and punching each other, and this issue was very just talking. And one thing that I've noticed with this book, and I know a couple other people have mentioned it, is there are very few backgrounds in We Ride Titans. A lot of it is just flat backgrounds where characters are kind of just floating in this empty space.
What you just said about We Ride Titans is what I remember from issue 1, because the first half of it is like action packed. Like we see the Titans, we see fights going on, and the artwork is really dynamic. And then like the second half of it, even though it's more like personal, it's more humanized. Like we get like people talking about their families and kind of like where they're at. But it felt boring compared to the beginning. So it kind of stinks that issue 2 was just a continuation of like the second half of the first book, because I feel like something that's called We Ride Titans should just be about, like, it should just be bitches riding Titans.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree.
Really quick, Serge says, what type of are you guys on? Are you Marvel? I have to talk to, so we're on indies, so we haven't even gotten to Marvel or DC yet. Yeah,
there was a lot of. Now I'm thinking about it. There was a lot of indie books that we went through.
Yeah.
So that's everything for like stuff that I think we read separately. I think everything we now have is stuff that we've both read. I know there's one book that we really want to talk about, but I think we should save it at the end of our indie rant because I feel like it's going to be the biggest one to talk about.
I think I only have 2 here that I'm like from this week. So what else do you have for indie?
I have 2 from this week, 2-ish from this week. One of the big ones is you guys talked about it last week, but listen, y'all know I got to put my 2 cents into it because I feel like I'm the minority at this point. And that's Reign number 2. There are so many people right now. I know No Good Comics is on the train. I know Shy Comic Girl is on the train.
No Good Comics is the Reign train right now. I feel like
train.
He is definitely, Justin is pushing Reign
I need to know how much Joe Hill is paying you, Justin, because I am just very confused why so many people like this book. I know I talked about my issues with issue 1, the fact that we are burying gays over and over and over again, and I am just over it. And I feel like issue 2 was a lot of the same thing, where we're just rehashing the bury your gay. Those first couple pages is just, oh, I miss her. Oh, I hate this. Oh, yeah. I want to die with her. And I'm like, I don't need something this depressing right now. And then as the book went on, it continued to get very, very messy. And I felt like, why is she going to Denver? And then as she's going to Denver, we see her meet this guy who's like, can you help me save my cat? And I'm like, listen, I'd do the same thing. I would also stop to help somebody save the cat, but
I'd be like, this is my cat now.
But it's the fact that we even have to put a thought bubble of, I'm probably going to get raped, and this is a bad idea. Yeah. You didn't have to say that. There is no goddamn reason why we need to have that in our comic book. Yeah. I honestly felt, as I was reading this book, because it was just depressing moment after depressing moment after depressing moment, but it wasn't even like thoughtful depression, thoughtful depression, because I feel like, in very bleak moments it can get very, very beautiful. This book just wanted to be bleak for the sake of being bleak, and
this might as well be like a Scott Snyder book.
Part of this honestly felt like they were trying to rehash The Road over again.
Oh yeah,
but without some of the intensity and some of those moments that we get from John McCarthy's The Road. And I feel like this is going to be that one book I'm going to continue to hate read.
Yeah,
because I hate it so much.
And it's a limited issue series, so I think there's only like 4 issues, so that it's pretty much halfway done. But this book is so bleak. There's nothing to enjoy about it. Like maybe the artwork, and that has nothing to do with the story. So Zoe Thorogood's artwork is absolutely beautiful in this. So I don't want to discount that. And I don't want to discount David Booher as a writer, but this book is just...
I needed better from David Booher as the queer champion of comics right now next to Tom Taylor.
Especially thinking about books like Killer Queens. That was just like fun. Like I
Even
needed
Canto.
Yeah.
It's just like I hate this book, and I know it's going to sound really, really fucking just childish, but I think I get angrier the more I see people like it, because I kind of just want to like shake them by the shoulders and be like, why do you like this? And I understand that comics and media and whatever, you're meant to enjoy what you're meant to enjoy, but I struggle, maybe as a queer woman, maybe it's just a woman in general. This does not feel like a book that likes women very much.
Exactly. This book hates me, and I don't like it. Yeah. It's a hard read.
It's a very I know it's Joe Hill, but it is a very Stephen King-esque book, and it is 2022, and this feels like a book that was written back in the 80s. It really does.
Yeah. I'm still going to punish myself. I'm still probably going to buy issue 3 and issue 4, but I'm going to complain about it the whole time.
I'm going to complain about it the whole time. That's how I feel about it. Should we talk about a book that we did like this week?
Yes.
I feel like we should talk about a book we did like this week. She just flashed it up right away. So, shocking turn of events. If you joined us last month when we talked about Bolero number 1, I was very, very, very on the fence with this book.
I was the opposite. I
was
loved
extremely on the fence.
It was probably my favorite issue. It was one of my favorite issues that week. I don't remember what the other ones were, but it was up there with like one of my favorite.
Rain came out the same week.
Oh shit. And Saga, right?
And Saga, so you didn't have much to choose from.
Yeah.
So Bolero number 2, I loved it. Actually, I'm going to be honest with y'all. It's my favorite book of the week.
Yeah, it makes me sad that this is also a limited issue series. I think 5 issues, 6 issues, something like that. But the premise of it is this young woman is going through a breakup or has gone through the breakup, and she's really emotional when she gets the chance to, she gets the key to unlocking different universes, and she can jump 30 something times.
It's like, I thought it was like
70-something.
50. I think it's like 58 or something like that. So she can jump 58 times into each of these, different dimensions.
But she can't go back.
She can't go back.
Like, there's certain rules.
She has to find one and she has to pick it. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I thought, because we're already talking about jumping dimensions.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought, especially with the way that issue 1 ends, because issue 1 ends with, our main character, how do I say this without being offensive? But
it's spoilery alert. Like, if you haven't read it, but
they are presented as a male rather than being female, and that was kind of where I was like on the fence with, okay, how do I feel about this book?
And I think that there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think that it was presented in a gimmicky way, as opposed to like a thought. It wasn't
like a thoughtful way.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure that issue 2 was going to pick up with, them, that the kind of like trope where it's like, oh, I'm a girl, but I'm now a boy. And, I think of immediately that fucking Scooby-Doo quote where Freddie Prinze Jr. is like, I'm going to look at myself naked. Yeah. Like, that's literally what my mind goes to. And I thought we were going to see more of that. But issue 2 is literally just, you're jumping from dimension to dimension. And that's kind of what I was talking about before, where I don't know why I expected in a book about jumping dimensions for it to just be, oh, we're changing, our gender, or changing or whatever, changing my hair and going to this. But the first real place that we jump to is like this very Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen-y type world.
Hide this page, but yeah.
It's a very Jane Austen-y type world, and she gets to a point where she's like, you know what? I love you, but I can't fucking live in this romance bullshit. Treat her well. Goodbye. And I loved that. And then our next world we go into is like this weird space-esque world.
Sci-fi weird world, yeah.
And I'm like fascinated by how many more worlds we're going to get to see. And in this issue, our main character kind of loses track of what they were originally going for because they meet somebody else.
Yep.
And I just think it has this book could really, explain a lot and go into the idea of what truly makes you happy and who truly makes you happy.
There is also, so the characters exploring their sexuality in a way where, like, there's a page that I'm looking at and I absolutely cannot show it on screen, but I'm just going to go ahead and paint that they are.
It's very good. I know which page you're talking about. It's a very good page.
It is a very good page. Like, it feels like they are going through a sex club, like, and going to like a different room of a sex club and experiencing different things, and people, like, this is delicious. It reminds me, I'm going to talk about another book. I think, like, we're going to save this other book for last. This is what I want this other series to be. This book is also what I want every Mirka Andolfo and Maria Lovett. Like, there's some of the artwork that reminds me of Maria Lovett. Like, this is what I want those books to be. I want it to be trashy smut. I want it to be trashy sci-fi smut. And, like, I love this, and it's really good. There's a particular page that, like, if I could frame this page, I would, because it's...
What is stopping you, Jen?
I don't want
Nothing is stopping you. We can get a digital copy. We have digital copies, can print out digital copies and print them and frame them.
Please, everyone, go pick up Bolero. It's really good. It's only on issue 2.
All right, I'm going to say it. Here we go. I'm going to knock on wood because I feel like every time I do it, it doesn't happen. This may be the book of 2022.
This might be the book of yeah, I agree.
This may be 2022 for me.
It's only the end of February, but seriously, this might be like my favorite book.
Do you remember what other book came out in February that we also said was going to be book of the year last year?
Hollow Heart.
Mm-hmm. That's why I knocked on wood, because I'm very worried that it's going to get away from itself. So
yeah.
I'm really, really enjoying this. I can't wait to read it in trade, because I feel like this is going to be one of those books where as soon as I've read all 5 issues or 4 issues, I'm immediately going to want to consume it again. Yeah. Very, very, very excited for this one.
Yep. Please read it. Please read it.
Please. And that's coming from somebody who did not like it.
Yeah. And, like, seriously, the artwork. Oh, and sorry, so funny story. So I picked this book up this week. Like, the Nick at the comic shop knows that this is one of my absolute favorite books. Apparently, Wyatt Kennedy, the like half an hour after I left the store, went into my shop, signed copies, and then Nick at the comic shop messaged me and was like, "Hey, there's now signed copies. Do you want to come back and like exchange your book?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna go ahead and just buy another copy." So you know what? Maybe I will go ahead and I'll destroy this copy by putting that one particular page up. Like, go ahead and like hang it and frame it and hang it, and then I'll keep the signed copy.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. It's surprisingly delightful. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. The last book, and this is kind of, sorry, I'm gonna just say it.
Well, no,
This
there's another book. I know you didn't read it, but I want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. The book that you read that I only read half of this.
You only
book.
read half.
Yeah.
So Rockstar and Softboy #1 came out this week. It was they considered it an OGN, but it was only like 68 pages. So
Yeah.
I want to say it was just like a very thick boy. It was a very thick boy.
Mm-hmm.
This is done by Cena Grace, who did Getting It Together last year for Image. It was a 4-issue miniseries. And I was not a big fan of that. So I was like,
Getting It Together, it felt like
a lot of people did.
It felt like a modern millennial Scott Pilgrim, but a book that wasn't centered around Scott Pilgrim and his lack of going to therapy.
It sounds about right. That sounds about right. But I read this book. This book was absolutely delightful. I love the characters. I love the artwork. It is literally 2 gay men that are friends and they're roommates, and it's platonic. It is completely platonic. And I thought when I originally was reading this, I'm like, okay, it's going to be your typical, I meet the love of my life. We're going to get into some type of trauma. And then, the
love of my life
we're going to get over it
all time. Yeah.
And I love the idea. First of all, we don't get a ton of books out there that feature prominent gay men, and not only gay men, but very flamboyant gay men. In lack of a better sense, because Rockstar is very, very flamboyant. I was just a treat.
Boy is just a soft, quiet
boy.
I love that both of the characters. So I only read maybe about half of it, maybe a third of it. So I didn't finish it yet because I forgot to pick it up at my shop, or it just didn't make it into my like pre-order pile. And then you reminded me that we have a digital copy of it, but I didn't finish the digital copy. But so like Rockstar, like you said, is very flamboyant, very sex positive, not
very sex positive.
But then Soft Boy is like, I'm very gay and I love having sex, but right now I'm like focused on my career. I'm focusing on game development, and he's literally the equivalent of like both of these people are like all the gay people that I know, where it's like all the gay people that I know are literally like Rockstar going out wearing heels, dressing up like in full makeup just to go get some coffee, and then Soft Boy, who is like sweatpants and Crocs.
Yeah, no, 100%. Did we just describe ourselves?
A little bit, but no Crocs. I don't wear Crocs.
No Crocs. I really like this book. There was one point where it got a little weird for me because they start throwing witches and succubus and like actual like fantasy stuff into it. I'm like, wait a minute, we're in like a weird fantasy world, and I think it's like really cute, and I kind of want to explore more into that world. 100% would read, maybe not necessarily another Rockstar and Soft Boy, but if it was another group of characters set in the universe,
Rockstar instead of.
It could be, but if it's just set in this universe, I personally would really enjoy it. I really like it. I think it's a very great queer read. I think it's definitely something that we don't get a lot of when we look at queer comics. So it's not your typical coming out story. It's really just a celebration of queer culture and people being queer without it. I mean, it is at the forefront, but without it being, oh, it's a part of my identity and I have to find myself. It's just,
and without it being center. I mean, granted, I didn't finish it, so like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's not centered around tragedy in like the same way that Rain is. So like Rain that we talked about earlier is basically the entire book it's a tragedy, and it's these 2 queer characters where they are like falling in love and they're about to move in together, and they're talking about like how much they love one another, and then like the main character dies in the first. So to see a book about queerness and about queer people that's not centered around
platonic queerness, I think is very important. So it was very good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Had a lot of fun with this book.
Yep. Okay, so are we on to the last book?
I think it's time to talk about it because
We're talking about the last indie book.
you texted me and was like, I fucking hated Saga. And I was like, oh no. And then a day later I read it and I was like reading it. I'm like, this isn't so bad. I was like, it's definitely not great. But then you get to those last 2 pages and it was that's a big yike. So we're gonna spoil the fuck out of Saga 56 because there's no way for us to talk and rant about Saga 56 without spoiling it. So
I'm gonna go ahead and put up a little spoiler banner. Let me see if I can find it. So really quick, spoiler.
Can we talk about the positive before we rip into it? Because there is a couple positives. There's a couple positives.
I think that I liked this issue better than the previous one. I don't want to say the first issue because it's issue 55 and this was issue 56. But after being on a 3-year hiatus, I feel like I'm still not getting justification for the murders of the main characters, and then it jumping 3 years and not having any, I don't know, mention anything like that. But I feel like we do get some better moments, some tender moments with Hazel and some of the other characters that were on like this pirate ship that is a big library of music. I appreciated that. And I love that. I love the artwork.
Okay, the things we like are wildly different, but okay.
What did you really like about it?
I feel like the things I like are very superficial. There's like one not superficial. I like this fuck, what are they called? What is Marco's race called? They're not the Blues, are they?
I call them the Blues because I mean there's Landfall and there's
Wreath.
And Wreath. So would he be a Wreathian?
I don't know. Anyway, this knockoff Marco, I kind of like him, and here's why I like him. I like his design. I like the idea that he's got these big ass fucking antlers. I think that is really, really neat because it feels like every character we've seen of his species so far have had very subtle antlers and horns, whereas this guy is just like huge as shit. I really like.
He definitely, really quick, so he definitely brings the sad gamer boy energy that I've been missing from Marco, and as a bisexual woman, like that's apparently my type is sad gamer boy. Sorry.
It's mine too. It's fine. It's fine. We all have it. It's fine. It happens. That being said, I love my partner very much if they are listening, but you know what you are, and it's fine. Yeah. I really like this part where we go back to the Prince Robot Kingdom. I like seeing how his dad is in mourning, especially because he's the one that did this. And you get this really badass lady robot who's like, you literally did this, my guy. This is all your fault. Like, I don't know what to tell y'all. So I like seeing that. I think it's just like, I just like hearing about Prince Robot because I miss him so much. Yeah. I also, speaking of robots,
I kind of dig the sexual tension between them too.
Oh yeah, no, me too, 100%. I'm here for it. But speaking of robots, I have a new favorite character in Saga, and it's this robot lady here.
Fuck the Monarchy.
The Fuck the Monarchy. She is just the coolest, badass bitch I have ever met. I want to be friends with her. I want to get drinks with her. I possibly want to make out with her. She's cool. I love her a lot. Please, Brian K. Vaughan, confirm her as gay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's now time to talk about the elephant in the room.
This book was delightful up until maybe the last couple pages. So
just the last 2 pages.
Yeah. Big antler dude. It's revealed may not be a good guy. And instead of necessarily like saying like, haha, I have this plan, or haha, here's how. So he's basically telling Alana, like, you need to get naked. Like, I need to, you need to prove that you don't.
That you're not, yeah.
And she's resisting, and he says something, and I really don't want to say what he says, like the first part, because it's pretty triggering. But then he says this really, really awful thing about doing a really awful thing to her and Hazel.
Her children, yeah. Both her and Squire.
Yeah.
And again, won't repeat, but just imagine the worst thing imaginable that you could possibly do to children without killing
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
And I think what is so jarring, so I read that and I'm like, what the actual fuck? And then you flip the page and you get this big old oops.
I'm gonna.
Probably thrown. You get this big old oops. Probably should have thrown in a trigger warning. And it felt very condescending.
It was very
I
condescending.
felt like I was being talked down to, and coming from Brian K. Vaughan, because I feel like Brian K. Vaughan was really like what Tom Taylor is now before Tom Taylor stepped onto the scene, where Brian K. Vaughan would get a little political, and, you know, showed queerness and was like a queer ally and talked about these very sensitive moments that maybe a lot of other creators didn't talk about publicly.
Yeah.
For him to be like, oops, trigger warning, it's like, now you're just being a fucking asshole. And I
That's
know
what
you're not an asshole because I've met you and you're one of the nicest people I've ever met, but what the actual fuck?
And when I read that, like, I hated it. I hated every single moment of it. But it reminded me of, is it issue 1 of Paper Girls, also written by Brian K. Vaughan, where he uses the F slur in like relations to some characters. Like one of the main characters says something to another character about being like the F slur. And then, spoiler alert, it's then later on, both those characters are revealed to be gay and end up having a relationship with one another. So it's like, I get that that's how he was trying to build up that relationship, but at the same time, I'm like, there's better ways of doing that. You don't have to use that slur. And same thing in this, like, you can paint this dude to be a bad guy, but you don't have to have him threatening children and women in this way.
And here's the thing is, you know, and I was thinking about this, you know, because Brian K. Vaughan has done stuff in a very similar vein where he's painted how dark and how bleak the world can be. And he did it in fucking Saga. So in the first arc of Saga, the Will and Lion Cat go to, I can't even think of the planet, but they basically go to the sex prostitution planet where we are introduced to Sophie, who, spoiler alert, is a child prostitute. And that is fucking...
Hold on. I want to say this. There's no such thing as a child prostitute because children cannot consent to do sex work. Sophie is a child who has been forced into sex slavery.
Okay, that is a better term for it. But we've still been introduced to what is probably another most bleak and dark fucking thing that is in the similar vein as to what was said in this book. And that is handled in such a gracious, and I don't want to say kind way, but in a caring way, where I don't want to say it's tiptoed around, but it is approached very cautiously.
And then, because several issues later, what happens with Sophie is that Sophie is basically saying, I'm dirty, I'm filthy, because I've done things. And then Lion Cat, like a true hero, comes in and says, lying.
And it's probably one of the best moments that we've had in comics, period. And it's the idea that Brian K. Vaughan can go from that, which is, you know, all the way over here, to what we are now at. It feels like it's not even him. It feels like it's somebody else that's writing the book. Like, is somebody secretly ghostwriting Saga and Brian K. Vaughan isn't?
I think the thing that frustrates me the most is that Brian K. Vaughan had 3 years to reflect and to, like, very cautiously write Saga, maybe. And not necessarily that writers should be cautious, because I don't want them to be cautious. Like, I think that if anything, art should make us think, and the media that we consume should be thoughtful. But it just feels like he's trying to, I don't know.
It's hard for me to think that this is the same guy who not only did that whole, you know, Saga scene with Sophie, but also is the same creator, along with Fiona Staples, of course, who gave us 6 pages of just black after he killed an entire planet and made you sit and think and reflect.
Yeah.
Like, how are these the same people?
Yeah, agreed. So anyways, Saga was probably one of my least favorite issues that I read this week. There may be others where I'm just like, I couldn't finish this. But seriously, when I say that Bolero is what I wish Saga was right now, Bolero is doing it for me and Saga is not. And that hurts to say. That hurts to fucking say right now.
Yeah.
I We had 3 years, 3.5 years for this.
3.5 years for literally, like, it feels disrespectful. It feels distasteful.
I agree.
I'm not a fan of it right now. And I hope that 60, 56, 57 can get better. But if this is the way Saga's going to continue to go, I'm going to be dropping it. I'm going to go back to trade waiting.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do that, but it's definitely going to be, I don't know. It's going to be tough to read Saga.
It's going to be tough.
Well, that is all of the indies between Marvel and DC for this week. This is what I've got. A lot of these are variant covers. So, what DC did you get this week?
I only have 3 DC books. One of them being from last week. So I guess I'll touch on that one first. That is Nightwing number 89.
Okay. This is where the mashup between John Kent and Nightwing.
It's like a crossover. And let me tell you, when I say that this is the only crossover I will probably understand in my entire life, because I am reading both Superman, Son of Kal-El, and Nightwing. Yeah. I love this issue. I love the way that this opened up. So it opens up with, this flashback where Nightwing and Batman are searching for a very young Jonathan Kent who has probably run away and is very scared of his powers. And we find out that he's got the rest of the Robins out looking for them, that Justice League is out looking for him, and Batman and Nightwing find him. And there's a scene where, they come up to him in a cave and, I'm having a brain fart. Jonathan laser beams out of fear, and Nightwing is like, "You dumbass, take off your mask. You're terrifying." And he literally rips off Batman's mask. And it's, the two of them, coming up to John and being very caring. And listen, as much as I'm loving Nightwing and stuff right now, I just want a fucking Bat Family book.
Yeah.
By Tom Taylor, where we get these really nice, intense character moments, and we get to humanize characters like Batman, who do not feel very fucking human. I really enjoyed this issue, especially with like Son of Kal-El, which I feel like the past couple issues has kind of been losing me. It feels like the last issue of Nightwing was kind of losing me. This feels right back where we need to be with this sort of character and with this run.
Yeah, I do wish that there were more events like this where it's not necessarily like, oh, there's fear toxins spreading over Gotham and like everyone's got to jump in and it's going to be in every single book. Like I really wish that like the crossovers were more like this, where it was literally just like 2 characters hanging out for a couple issues. Because, and I'm glad that Tom Taylor is writing both, because I think that that's also why it doesn't feel like a regular.
It doesn't feel jarring. It just feels like it's his story, but rather than it being issue 1, 2, 3, and 4 all in Nightwing, it's 1 and 2 are in Nightwing, 3 and 4 are in Superman.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought this was 1 of 2. I thought this was only 2.
Well, I'm just using that as like a hypothetical.
Yeah. So it looks like it's just a 2-issue crossover.
Which is even better. Like, keep it all, you're all in the same month. More than likely, most people who are reading Nightwing are also reading Superman, Son of Kal-El. So you're not missing out on much.
Exactly.
Love it. Tom Taylor, keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
What other DC books did you get?
A little book called Human Target number 5.
Ooh, so I didn't pick this up. I haven't picked it up since like issue 2, but I hear it's good. But I know you have thoughts.
Don't get me wrong, Sears is very good. It's got this very, very crime noir feeling. So there's this character who is literally the Human Target. Human Target gets poisoned because it was supposed to be Lex Luthor who was poisoned, but they are now poisoned. So he has 12 days to live. He has been teaming up with all kinds of people from Justice League International, which I fucking love because these are characters that don't get enough love. We've seen him team up with Booster Gold, with Ice, with Blue Beetle. It's just been really fun, and it's a really great crime noir type book. Not only that, but Greg Smallwood's artwork is some of the most gorgeous artwork in comics right now. Like, listen, if he does not win an Eisner for this book, I'm going to be very, very upset, because it's probably my favorite artist on the market right now. However, Mr. Tom Taylor, or Tom King, sorry, Mr. Tom King.
The other Tom.
Mr. Tom King, because I know you're listening, and I know that we're friends, and buddy, what the fuck are you doing? So it's very subtle. But it is basically applied or implied or alluded, or they fucking show it, that the love of my life, Fire, Miss Beatrice DaCosta, has had sexual relations with Martian Manhunter.
I'm here for it because I too would have sexual relationships with Johns.
Listen, lesbians, Mr. King, lesbians. Okay, Beatrice is a lesbian. You can't tell me otherwise.
You know, it's so funny. It said in issue 4, for those of you, I didn't read issue 4, but I saw panels from issue 4 where Ice has relationships with, his name is John?
The Human Target.
And I sent those, and I thought that you would be infuriated. I thought that was going to be your villain origin story, was going to be
this is my villain origin story.
Ice having relationships. And so you're like, nah, she's bisexual. And I'm like, okay. And then this issue came out, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I guess, like, you know, like Fire is bisexual too, I guess. Like, I really don't know too much about the characters other than what you've told me. And so I'm really surprised. I'm
very, very upset. I'm very confused. You know, and I can overlook this if Tom King does the right thing and makes them fucking lesbians by the end of this goddamn book. Like, Tom, buddy, pal, friend, do the right thing. Make them gay. I know the sign's not up yet because it's packed. Make them gay, you cowards.
Tom King, hear me out. Go ahead and make Martian Manhunter and Human Target a thing.
That's fine too. You can do whatever you want. That being said, I just want to come out and say that I was right, because at the end of the issue, it is revealed that Fire is the one who poisoned the Human Target.
Spoiler.
Because of
officially unofficial geek.
Sorry. You're getting there.
Sorry.
You're fine. But it's basically like revealed / alluded that Fire is the one that poisoned the Human Target because she was trying to poison Lex Luthor because he hurt Ice. And if that's not a lesbian thing, I don't know what to tell you. So we're on issue 5. We have, what is it, an 8-issue miniseries?
So Greg Smallwood said that they're going to take a break. And so that I think that this is going to be a 10-issue series. That issue 5 is going to be the maybe halfway point. And then so they're going on hiatus for several months, till September. This is going to give Greg Smallwood a chance to draw it and to work on the book. And then by the time September comes, then a trade will be out. That is what I heard Mr. Smallwood say. Let me see if I can find it.
Elmo's gonna sue.
Did you say Elmo?
Elmo's gonna sue. Mars is gonna sue because I love this book, and I feel like the reason why I love this book as much as I do is because I'm waiting for them to be confirmed gay, and I bet you $1 million fucking dollars that they are not going to be gay at the end of it. I'm just gonna be disappointed. I just feel like it's gonna happen.
Okay, sorry. So Greg Smallwood says volume 1 of Human Target, issues 1 through 6, will hit shops in September, same as issue 7. So it sounds like next month is going to be another issue, and then that's going to be the first arc. So I guess it's going to be a 12-issue series.
I'm upset. It's fine. It's whatever. It's fine. I'll suffer. What DC books did you read? Because I only have one more, and it was one that you couldn't finish.
So Aquaman, issue 1. I read Aquaman The Becoming, which features this new character. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I didn't love this one as much, but I'm still, like, I like the artwork. I like the story that's been built up to this, so I'm still going to keep reading it. And then... let's see here. I didn't finish reading this, but I picked it up merely because we find out about a certain person's identity. So I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and pick it up. And apparently
I heard about it. It makes no sense.
I haven't been reading it since like issue 2 or 3. But I'm like, this is kind of a cool cover. Let me go ahead and pick it up. So finally, the Red X gets revealed.
Red X gets revealed. It is apparently, I don't want to say a no-name character because it's a character that's been in Teen Titans Academy, but it's just a random character, and I can't think of who the writer is, but the writer even came out and said that they did not want to reveal the identity of Red X, because we've gone so long at this point without revealing it, and there's been so many conspiracies of who it has been. There's been conspiracies that Red X is a mantle, and it just all depends on who it's, convenient for, who takes it up. At one point it was Dick Grayson, at one point it was Jason Todd, now it's this random dude, and it's just really bizarre, and it feels like this was forced by DC Comics in the hopes that it would drive hype and spec to their book.
I feel like it didn't, because I feel like a lot of other books end up getting those reveals, or it's like the first appearance of this character's sister, or the origin of this. And I feel like those get hyped up more than this was. And it sucks because throughout the whole Future State event, it's like we were promised this like Red X character was going to get revealed, and then it didn't. And then Teen Titans Academy came out, and it took issue 12.
Yeah.
A whole last year. A whole ass year.
It took a year, and it's just, I don't know. It didn't need to happen. We didn't need this reveal, and I'm hoping at some point it gets retconned, and I feel like it's going to get retconned, if I'm being quite honest with you.
Yep. The only other issue from DC that I got this week, I'm not going to go into the previous weeks, but that was Catwoman.
That's what I have.
I didn't like this issue. But I will say, I know I posted on Twitter and maybe Facebook, but on the front of it, it says, when they take from you, make them pay. And that is straight up like, I don't know which rule it is, but it's a Ferengi rule of acquisition somewhere. So apparently Ferengis, this is the first appearance of Ferengis from Star Trek in Catwoman.
Interesting.
I didn't like this issue, sorry.
This issue, I didn't care for it as much as I did the first issue, until the later half when it starts to get a little sexy and What's-His-Face comes back, and I'm just like, I need y'all to bone because it's great. Also, there's a really great fucking allusion to Heart of Hush, and I really like that because we never get to fucking see callbacks to that story because everybody overhypes Hush and nobody talks about Heart of Hush, which is the superior Hush story.
Oh.
But Catwoman what number is this?
2. Or sorry, not 2. It's issue 40.
It's technically 2.
It's the second in this new run after Rom
from Teenie Howard. So Catwoman 40. I know one of the reasons you don't like it is because in the very beginning of the story, a sex worker is brutally murdered, and they are murdered literally to get back at Catwoman. And absolutely, I'm angry that sex workers are being used as plot devices. However, this plot has already fucking happened. We literally saw the same exact thing during Catwoman New 52 and Judd Winnick and Julia March's run when Catwoman's quote-unquote like best friend / fence.
They are lovers. They're
lovers. But when we saw a friend of Catwoman's who was also her fence, she was also brutally murdered, and Catwoman then had to go out and basically have this quest for revenge. We've already fucking seen this arc before, and the fact that it's being done again doesn't do anything. It doesn't amplify the stakes. It doesn't amplify the cost. It feels like the same story beats and tones until Mr. Man in White, I can't think of his name, shows up and starts to add sexual tension 1,000% to the fucking room. And listen, if they don't bone by the end of this, what is the point? What is the actual point if they don't bone?
That is the heartbreak that comics give me.
Like, I need them to bone. I mean, definitely keep providing the sexual tension for like a couple issues. Like, I don't want you to blow all your load right away, but I need more. Like, he's very cute. I very much like this new character. He's very fun. Just saying.
That was all the DC I got. The rest is I did get 4 covers of one particular story this last week.
Jen, why? How?
One. So I'll start with that. The reason why is because it was Ghost Rider. So it's Ghost Rider number 1. And then I got this cover.
There was a number 1.
Yeah. I did get the Momoko cover. I got the Scotty Young cover.
Oh, that's
and
cute.
I got this one as well. So I like it. Because it's like an Emma Frost.
So how was Ghost Rider? Did you just buy the covers?
I didn't really like the issue. And so, of course, I didn't like the issue because I bought 4 fucking covers of it. I feel like that happens every time I end up buying like more than 2 covers of something. It's like the worst. Here's the thing. I don't have a connection to Ghost Rider. There's nothing about, I feel like there's nothing new in this story that I haven't gotten before. Like, it didn't feel new. It felt tropey for Ghost Rider. So I'm just going to stare at the pretty covers. I just think it's neat.
I just think it's neat. What other Marvel books did you read? Because I only have 2. I have 2. That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. I got Phoenix Song Echo. This is the end of a series, and I feel like it got really emotional. She's like going into this past and going in. Anyways, it was really emotional. It was really good. I hope people pick up the trade of Phoenix Song Echo because I enjoyed it. Silver Surfer Rebirth didn't really. The first issue was all right. Second issue didn't do it for me, so didn't love that. I think I know which ones you got, so I'm gonna skip those. Did you read Silk number 2?
I did not, because I did not care for Silk number 1. That being said, it has probably one of the cutest variant covers I've ever seen this week.
It was actually really still kind of going through the same thing. In the first issue, there was a witch that awakens and starts turning people old, and it's still like going through that, and it's becoming like a mystery. So I like it for that. Let me see here. That one is a variant cover. X Deaths of Wolverine just continues to be the superior of X Lives and X Deaths.
I tried my damnedest to keep up with that series, and then I decided to move, and I was like, nope, a weekly event, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up. And listen, just know I tried, y'all. Yeah. I legitimately was trying to stay on the ball with it.
Yeah. I would say if you're going to read either, read X Deaths, but it's a lot. There's a lot of Wolverine family in here, which I really appreciate.
What?
Yeah. So we get Daken, we get Laura, we get Gabby. It's good.
I'm upsetty.
Yeah.
And which one is that? Is that Deaths or Lives?
This is X Deaths of Wolverine, issue number 3. Yep.
Which one was that? Was that the one with Moira in the beginning, or was that the one where they had to kill the baby?
That's the Moira one.
Okay.
Yep. I've only got a couple more now. That was a variant cover, so I've only got 3.
Okay. Black Widow number 14. Did you read that?
I didn't like it, so I didn't finish it.
It was average.
It was average.
I didn't hate it, but it was definitely stronger in the beginning than it was towards the end.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out why this book is still on my pull list, because nothing I think will ever compare to that first arc. That first arc was just really strong and really powerful.
And it sucks because the first arc, for me personally, didn't land until maybe the 3rd or 4th issue when it really, really landed. And then I feel like it hasn't been as good since. It
hasn't done it since. And I will say that I feel like this issue, or this arc is definitely stronger than the second arc.
Yeah.
But it's average. It's an average Black Widow story.
Kind of disappointing. But I hope that that it ends soon, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
The other 2 that I have, I don't know if you're still on Dark Ages.
I never read past issue 1. I was going to trade weight that one.
I mean, it's still pretty good. It's kind of doing the same thing. This one's very heavy on Deadpool, which I thought was kind of fun. It does end on the next issue, so issue number 6. Mm-hmm. So penultimate issue here. And it's Tom Taylor, and Tom Taylor, I think this will be their last DC book, their last Marvel book before officially going over to DC exclusively. Yeah. I hope people pick up the trade if you haven't picked up this single issue by single issue, because it gets you to all the characters, and there's characters that you're familiar with, but I don't know. Anyways, I really liked it. I'm gonna keep reading it. One more issue. Okay. Mm-hmm. I only have one more Marvel book. What do you have?
The only Marvel book I have is Elektra, Black, White, and Blood number 2. Why does this? I don't understand why this series exists. I'm gonna come out and
think
say
it's because Daredevil right now is really successful. Elektra has taken over the Daredevil. Elektra has taken over the Daredevil mantle, so I think we deserved an Elektra book.
But now it feels like they're flooding the market with the character just because of how successful and popular they are.
Oh.
Yes, I understand. You agree. Thank you. So fun fact, I now have a cat. Well, I don't have a cat. My partner has a cat. So you won't be the only one that has little Luna join-ins. I now have little Sonic join-ins. So we'll probably have a Sonic emote at some point in the future. But it just doesn't feel like this book needs to exist. It really doesn't. Again, Elektra's not that interesting of a fucking character. And she could be, but I feel like she's, for the longest time, has just been Daredevil's love interest. Yeah. I feel like the 3 stories we got were not, there was one that was very good, and that was the final one. Yeah. And we'll talk more about that in a second, because there's some shit that went down with that particular story and issue.
I think that we talked about it several weeks. Maybe we talked about it several weeks ago, where Greg Smallwood, who wrote and illustrated the story, was not told by Marvel, or was told really late in the game, hey, we need you to make changes because to the pupils of these characters, and we need you to make artistic changes, and then they were made without his consent.
Which is funny, because as we discovered this morning, in the print copy, there are changes that are made by the Marvel bullpen. However, in the digital versions of these books, the changes, there are no changes that have been made, and it's Greg Smallwood's initial vision. And I just think that's really weird and really interesting. But Elektra, Black, White, and Blood, it feels like every story we've gotten, every little mini story we've gotten, except for like 1 or 2, because this is an anthology series and there are multiple stories in one single issue, it feels like everything is based off of female pain and female trauma. And I'm tired.
Which isn't necessarily like a bad. I did like the second story in here because I like the way that it was told.
I liked the artwork in that one.
But I do. Elektra deserves to be a more thoughtful, fleshed out character, and I don't know why she hasn't been able to get that. I do think that she's being fleshed out a little bit in Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run, but it still feels like a Daredevil book as opposed to an Elektra book.
Yeah, 100%. Elektra deserves better. Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, this wasn't. I really liked. Just to say, I really liked the first Elektra, Black, White, and Blood, but I really liked the third story? I really enjoyed that one a lot, but I don't know if it's because of the whole thing with Greg Smallwood and the way that they treated his artwork. Like, seriously, Marvel, you're telling Greg Smallwood, like, we don't appreciate your artwork. We're going to make changes to your artwork because of like cultural sensitivities for Asian people. Yet CB Cebulski is still on your fucking payroll. A man who pretended to be an Asian man, operating under an Asian name, gave himself a full fake Asian identity to get work from you, is now like still your editor and one of your editors in chief or something like that. But then Greg Smallwood's art isn't acceptable to you. Sorry, that just feels fucked up.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with you.
So that's all. I mean, there were more books, but I think that's the majority of the books that we had this week.
That is the majority of the books. It was definitely, listen, 10 out of 10. If you are in this gig of reviewing comics and regularly reading comics and then talking about comics, 10 out of 10 would not recommend on moving, because you will fall behind and you will get overwhelmed, which is what I'm feeling right now.
You will have to make choices, because then you'll end up like reading books you don't like. And I'm like, did I seriously read this book instead of reading other ones? And now I've got a to be read pile that I just cannot keep up with.
Yep. So I'm hoping next week things will get back to normal. I can finally start reading comics normally again, because I'm going to be honest, I have, aside from weekly books, I have not read anything for pleasure all month.
Oh my goodness.
So it has been rough. Things are finally getting back to normal. We'll see the setup continue to grow and expand and finalize. I have plenty of room to buy more comics. That's my biggest complaint right now, is look at this. look at this. I have so much room down here. And
So much room for activities.
So much room for more comics. And that was the first thing I said last night was, look at how empty my shelves are. I have to buy more comics. So, yeah, I need more comics.
I love it. So I think, we're right after the 2-hour mark. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Or I know you said that you got some plans to buy more comics, read more comics.
More plans to buy more comics, read more comics. I have a mini little convention in 2 weeks. It's literally just in a high school gymnasium. However, there's a guy there who likes to sell Marvel incentive variants for $5. So I'm very excited, and I'm going to be picking up a lot.
Maybe you can find that Madeline Pryor.
That's not out yet, though.
Oh,
it's not out yet. So, and it's usually the 1 in 10s, 1 in 25s, one in stuff. But
as opposed to 1 in 50.
Yeah, as opposed to the really, really good ones. But there's still some great stuff. So I'm hoping possibly to do a little con vlog again, because I feel like a lot of people really, really like the con vlogs, and I really like filming them. I'm also just hoping to get back into actual creating, because now I have a dedicated studio space. I'm no longer doing things in a tiny corner of my bedroom. So it's very exciting. There's only going to be more from not only That Comic Girl channel, but from Casually Comics in the future. And I'm just really excited to watch as everything grows and expands.
Yeah. Well, Mars, I've missed you for like a month. So I'm really glad that we got together again today to talk about comics. And hopefully we'll be back again next week. Otherwise, see me on Fridays over on, it's been on Fire Guy Ryan's channel, where we do Friday night live comics with Bearded Comic Bro and Fire Guy Ryan. Sometimes we have guests on, and then monthly book club over on Comic Shop News. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you everyone watching on the replay. But I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Bye.